The quantum veil, Jesus' secret to traversing archonic dimensions. What if Jesus' miracles weren't divine intervention, but a profound understanding of quantum reality? Imagine a world where walking through walls wasn't just a biblical story, but a mastery of consciousness that we can all learn. This video reveals the precise energetic model that Jesus used to navigate invisible dimensions and achieve spiritual liberation. Ancient texts whisper about hidden dimensions and invisible forces. These are not mere myths or primitive superstitions. They point to a reality we have long misunderstood. Throughout history, spiritual traditions have documented experiences that defy our physical laws. These accounts share striking similarities across cultures and centuries. Jesus demonstrated an ability that puzzled witnesses and disciples alike. He appeared and disappeared in ways that seemed impossible. He walked through locked doors. He vanished from angry crowds. He transcended the normal limits of physical matter. These were not tricks or illusions reported by unreliable sources. Multiple witnesses documented these events with consistency and detail. Modern minds often dismiss these accounts as religious fantasy. We label them miracles and move on without deeper inquiry. But what if there is more to discover? What if these events reveal a profound understanding of reality itself? The evidence suggests Jesus possessed knowledge about the fundamental nature of existence. This knowledge allowed him to manipulate what we now call the quantum field. The ancient world spoke of veils between dimensions. Gnostic texts described archonic realms that trap human consciousness. These realms operate on frequencies invisible to normal perception. Jesus apparently learned to navigate these dimensional barriers. He understood something we are only beginning to grasp through quantum physics. The material world is not as solid as it appears. Reality consists of vibrating energy fields that consciousness can influence. This understanding challenges everything we think we know about physical limitations. It suggests a quantum veil separating ordinary perception from deeper truth. Behind this veil exists a malleable reality responsive to trained consciousness. Jesus mastered this knowledge. The question is whether we can learn the same principles he applied. Can modern seekers replicate his dimensional transcendence? Quantum mechanics has revolutionized our understanding of reality at its most fundamental level. Particles exist in superposition until observed. Observation itself collapses the wave function into concrete reality. This means consciousness plays an active role in creating what we experience. The observer effect demonstrates that mind and matter are intimately connected. Jesus seemed to understand this principle 2,000 years before quantum physics emerged. He repeatedly emphasized the power of belief and faith. According to your faith, it will be done unto you. This was not religious poetry. It was a precise instruction about consciousness affecting material outcomes. He taught that mountains could move through focused intention. He demonstrated that physical limitations dissolve before trained awareness. The quantum field contains infinite possibilities, existing simultaneously. Every potential outcome vibrates at a specific frequency. Jesus apparently learned to align his consciousness with desired frequencies. This allowed him to shift between dimensional states. When he walked through walls, he was not violating physical laws. He was accessing higher dimensional spaces that interpenetrate our three-dimensional world. Modern physics confirms that additional dimensions exist beyond our normal perception. String theory requires at least 10 dimensions for mathematical consistency. These dimensions are not far away in space. They are folded into every point of existence. They remain invisible because our consciousness typically resonates at a limited bandwidth. Jesus expanded his conscious bandwidth to access these hidden dimensions. The archonic realms ancient texts describe correspond to specific frequency bands. These lower dimensional spaces trap consciousness through fear and limitation. They maintain control by keeping awareness contracted. Jesus demonstrated freedom from these constraints. He showed that consciousness can transcend any dimensional prison. The key lies in understanding and applying quantum principles to awareness itself. This is the essence of his dimensional mastery. Jesus employed a specific energetic blueprint for dimensional navigation. This was not random spiritual practice, but precise energy manipulation. Ancient mystery schools preserve fragments of this knowledge. The techniques involve activating dormant capacities within human energy anatomy. Every person possesses the same potential Jesus demonstrated. Most remain unaware of these latent abilities. The human energy field extends beyond the physical body. It contains multiple layers corresponding to different dimensional frequencies. Jesus learned to consciously shift his energy signature between these layers. This allowed him to become invisible to physical perception. He did not disappear. He simply raised his vibrational frequency beyond normal visual range. Witnesses could no longer detect him because their perception remained locked in lower frequencies. The process requires 3 essential components. First comes the purification of emotional and mental distortions. These distortions create static in the energy field. They prevent smooth frequency transitions. Jesus emphasized forgiveness and release of judgment for this reason. Clean energy fields respond more readily to conscious direction. Second involves activating the light body through specific practices. Breath work, meditation, and sacred sound can stimulate dormant energy centers. These centers function as dimensional gateways when properly activated. Third requires understanding the geometric patterns underlying reality. Sacred geometry reveals the mathematical architecture of dimensional interfaces. Jesus knew these patterns. He could visualize and embody the geometries that enable dimensional shifting. The Merkaba field represents one such geometric structure. When properly activated, it creates a vehicle for consciousness to travel between dimensions. This is not metaphor but practical energy technology. The Archonic dimensions maintain control through frequency fences. These are energetic barriers that prevent consciousness from ascending. Jesus showed how to dissolve these barriers through heart-centered coherence. When the heart generates powerful electromagnetic fields, it can override Archonic interference. This is why love and compassion feature so prominently in his teachings. They are practical tools for dimensional liberation. The Archonic dimensions form a complex hierarchy of control mechanisms. Ancient Gnostic texts mapped these realms with remarkable precision. They describe rulers who feed on lower emotional frequencies. These entities maintain power by keeping human consciousness trapped in fear and separation. Jesus recognized this system and learned to navigate beyond its influence. The Archonic realms exist in specific frequency bands between 3rd and 4th dimensions. They interpenetrate physical reality while remaining largely invisible. Most humans unconsciously interact with these realms through negative thought patterns. Fear, anger, and victimhood create energetic signatures that Archonic forces can manipulate. Jesus taught freedom from these patterns as essential spiritual practice. His dimensional transcendence was not escape, but mastery. He could enter Archonic realms consciously without becoming trapped. This required maintaining an unwavering connection to higher dimensional frequencies. The Christ consciousness he embodied vibrated far above Archonic influence. This high-frequency state acted as protective shield and navigation system simultaneously. Walking through walls and appearing in locked rooms demonstrated this mastery. Jesus was not performing supernatural acts. He was shifting his energy signature to higher dimensional space. From that vantage point, physical walls exist as energetic patterns rather than solid barriers. He could observe the quantum wave nature of matter directly. This allowed him to pass through material objects as easily as light passes through glass. The technique involves expanding awareness to perceive multiple dimensions simultaneously. Most people experience reality through a narrow perceptual window. This window filters out higher dimensional information. Jesus learned to widen his perceptual aperture dramatically. He could hold awareness in several dimensional frameworks at once. This multidimensional perception enabled his apparent miracles. Archonic forces cannot reach consciousness operating above their frequency range. Jesus established his awareness in what mystery traditions call the Christ plane. This represents a frequency band of unified consciousness and unconditional love. From this elevated state, he could observe Archonic realms without being affected. He then taught others how to achieve similar liberation. The key is consistent elevation of consciousness through spiritual practice and energetic purification. The abilities Jesus demonstrated are not exclusive to one unique individual. They represent latent human potential awaiting activation. Modern consciousness research confirms that extraordinary capacities lie dormant in everyone. The path to unlocking these abilities follows clear principles that anyone can apply with dedication and proper understanding. First comes the recognition that reality is fundamentally consciousness rather than matter. This shift in worldview is essential. As long as we believe in solid, unchangeable physical reality, we remain trapped in limitation. Jesus knew that matter is crystallized consciousness responding to focused intention. This knowledge formed the foundation of his dimensional mastery. Second, requires systematic energy body development. The physical body is not separate from consciousness, but a denser expression of the same energy. By working directly with subtle energy systems, we can expand conscious control over physical manifestation. Practices like meditation, breath work, and energy cultivation strengthen the connection between awareness and energy. Over time, consciousness gains increasing influence over energetic and physical states. Third, involves direct experience rather than intellectual understanding alone. Jesus did not merely teach theories about reality. He demonstrated practical mastery and encouraged disciples to develop similar abilities. Modern seekers must move beyond studying spiritual concepts to actively experimenting with consciousness. This means regular practice of techniques designed to expand awareness and energy sensitivity. The Archonic dimensional barriers dissolve as consciousness frequency rises. Jesus showed that liberation from these constraints is achievable in physical embodiment. We need not wait for death to transcend the limiting dimensional structures. The quantum veil becomes transparent to trained perception. What seemed miraculous reveals itself as a natural expression of awakened consciousness. Community support accelerates this developmental journey. Jesus gathered students who could support each other's growth. Modern practitioners benefit similarly from connecting with others walking this path. Shared practice amplifies individual efforts. Group energy fields can facilitate breakthroughs impossible alone. The collective awakening Jesus initiated continues today through those willing to develop their dimensional capacities. The ultimate goal is not personal power, but collective liberation. Jesus used his abilities to serve humanity's spiritual evolution. As more individuals activate these latent capacities, the entire planetary consciousness field elevates. This creates cascading effects that make awakening easier for everyone. We stand at a threshold where Jesus' dimensional mastery can become widespread human capacity. The quantum veil is thinning. The time for dimensional awakening is now. To deeply understand these advanced practices and access detailed guidance, check the link in the comments below. There you'll find resources to support your journey into dimensional consciousness.